So let's talk about content. So RBX has all the content. rbx.gg will have all the content. You can go there in your web browser. You can go there with your terminal browser, rbx.gg. So what is RWX? RWX has been existing sort of as a side project to SKILSTAK up until today. And what that means is that RWX is where all the content goes. It's an open knowledge project, still is, that provides practical, technical skills education to address problems of traditional education modules, learning from labs and challenges, not lectures. So RWX, the method of RWX is fundamentally focused on, above everything else, helping you to become an autodidact. And I've done a whole video series on becoming an autodidact already, but we're probably going to be going through that again, just to cut through it. It's pretty long. So, but the earlier you learn to learn, the better. Becoming an autodidact is the most essential skill anyone will ever master. Without it, you simply cannot progress on your own. You are your own best teacher. You are the boss of you. Grades and diplomas don't really matter. Skills and knowledge do. And this is confirmed over and over and over again. Today, to give you an example of how this happened, I'm still kind of rough around the edges on my Docker because I haven't needed it over the last 8 years. And the community was with me as I learned Docker myself, was able to search it, and the community watched as I screwed up. They helped out. Some of them learned something that I might have done that they didn't do. I did a pro in place regex replace. They might not have known that. So the idea of community learning is really powerful, and that's what SKILSTAK Live is all about. And it's still skillstack.io, but I'm thinking about registering SKILSTAK Live as a way for this. But SKILSTAK is bigger than just the live stream. I forgot to mention this, but we're going to be doing conferences and we're going to be doing retreats. Eventually, within the next 5 years, we're going to have not boot camps. We're going to have retreats where people can get together and code and sing and ride courses or whatever you wanted to. That's in the plan, and that's going to be here within 5 years or so. So, but where is the content all live? The content is here on rdbx.gg. RDBX stands for lots of things, and I'll talk about that in its own video. But the very first thing we learn is how to learn. The second thing we learn is how to learn Bash terminal, and particularly on Linux. The Linux Bash terminal is the most important tech skill any technologist can learn right now. I'm convinced more important than coding. Is learning how to live and operate on the command line. Whether you are a web developer who thinks that you're just a designer or you're never going to need the terminal, or you are, going to be the world's best hacker and pen tester, you must learn the Linux shell and Bash shell and the terminal. And that is not up for debate. That is what the industry has decided. And not only is it going to get you a job and provide for lots of opportunity for you to do amazing things, but it's going to empower you to do things you want to do that may not be related to work. So that's what we learn next. And coding is everywhere. So the third most important thing that we learn is how to code. There's a sort of a kitschy mantra that we have. And that's not really a mantra, a saying. Learn code, save the world, and the cool van and the sort of animated SVGs will come back to SKILSTAK, and we'll put that back on there. In fact, we're going to be selling t-shirts, and this is, I guess, the opportunity for making advertisement. So part of the community has been, since the dawn of time, has been this logo, Learn Code, Save the World. It's just one of our fun little logos that we have, and it's got some binary on there. And yes, you can consider this merch. Yes, all of it goes back into the community, hiring people to moderate and create challenges and all that other good stuff. And that merch and those t-shirts are immediately available for sale. And we'll be showing that later. That was just random. I wasn't planned. So rdbx.gg is where the knowledge is. and code is where it's at. So once you get a terminal, the next thing you need to do is learn to code from the terminal. And there's nothing wrong with VS Code and all of the other great ways to code out there. Those are fantastic, Replit and all of that. We support those. Those are really awesome, but it does not escape the need for you to learn how to code from the terminal and use the terminal for all the things. If you don't agree with those, I suppose, values, then this isn't the community for you. And there's lots of amazing communities out there that you could join instead. But these are the priorities of this community. Coding is everywhere. You cannot work in tech without it. Using the Linux Bash terminal command line is coding itself. Every command you type in every line is part of an interactive, ongoing program interpreted by Bash and processed by Linux. Put those same command lines in a file and you have a shell script. This is why Bash should be your first language despite its quirks. You already use it. There is zero cognitive translation between learning new commands and learning programming. They are the same. Why not master the language you already are using before starting to learn others? And I'm going to amend this. We will not be learning Bash first. We'll be learning POSIX shell first, which is a simpler version. And we'll consider adding on Bash after that. But that's a part of the process. I go back and forth on that because I believe that Bash is the default, but learning POSIX shell is important first, and then you can add on. So we probably will learn both of those. Whether those are the very first things we learn or not, that still remains to be the question. Most likely the answer is yes to that, though. And then what? After you learn to be being an autodidact, after you master the Linux, not master, but you become at least fluent in the terminal, the Linux Bash terminal specifically. We won't be learning Z shell and Fish are fine shells. I bag on them all the time because I think it's not what you're going to have on a default system, and I have fun with that. But they're fine shells. After you learn about the terminal shell, then we're going to learn how to code, and we'll be coding in shell, both shells, POSIX and Bash. We'll be learning to code in Perl, minimal Perl. We're not talking about massive operations. We're going to learn to code in Python, and we're going to learn to code in Go. Eventually, we'll also learn how to code in C. So those are going to be the core languages at SKILSTAK. We will learn web languages as well. We'll learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but we will not be learning those as a primary thing. They will be secondary, and we won't hit those until after we've hit all the other languages. They are important languages, obviously, but the need that I'm seeing is more for back-end engineers than front-end engineers. In fact, the front-end web development world right now is kind of bloated with people looking for jobs, and what a lot of them need is back-end skills to supplement their front-end skills. So this particular community and the content will be emphasizing back-end skills almost universally, with at least a nod to the front-end skills. You'll have to know HTML and CSS and JavaScript in order to code in it, but not to necessarily understand a framework or something like that. And if you haven't already noticed, I have I'm sort of aggravated by graphic interfaces in general because they're so inefficient and they can cause so many problems, and they're preventing people from using the web. And there's a bunch of reasons I won't complain about right now. So the last thing we're going to learn is how to get good to gig. And getting good to gig is being ready to get a job. What does it take to get a job? Whether you're the one who's your own boss or you're trying to get a job for a company with 30,000 employees and massive high performance computing nodes. What does it take to get a job, and how do you do it? How do you do your resume? Do you need a resume? Do you use a CV? What's the difference between a CV and a resume? How much do you put in there? Who do you talk to? Whether you need to certify? Do you need to certify? Do you need to go to college? Do you need to get a certificate? Do you need all these questions that are constantly at the core of getting you employed, whether for yourself or for others, are really, really important questions, and they will be a big part of the content. They're not the primary part of the content. They're like one part. So we are going to go through all of that, and then that sort of leads into researching and reaching out, learning how to make that connection. That's going to get you, the job. But even if the job is nonprofit, or the job is working for an open source project, what does it take to do that? How are you going to reach out? A lot of people that are attracted to technology are not particularly good at social skills. and I'm not trying to be mean about this. They just aren't. Some of them are, some of them aren't, and I kind of feel like, when I was making my deal with God or whatever, that I traded a little bit of brain power for a little bit of communication and social skill, because I've met people who are like real, like walking computers, who can do amazing things in minutes that would take me, 10 minutes to do. But I'm kind of a communicator and a community builder, and that's kind of the trade-off. So there's lots of things to learn. Some of the things are more technical, and some of the things are social or business related. So let me just recap. We're going to be learning. We're going to be learning to learn. Becoming an autodidact. What are the practices of an autodidact? Somebody who knows how to manage their own learning. How do we use the Linux shell from the terminal, and how do we code, and how do we get good to gig, reach out, and get that job and move on, and that's it.